Welcome to the Reading Horizons Discovery software overview. This overview is going to be specifically for families and or parents who are supporting students on the Reading Horizons Discovery software. So the focus will be on the student side. If you're an educator and you're looking for some help with the admin side, feel free to reach out to your customer success manager, or feel free to go to our readinghorizons.com website, and you'll find a lot of virtual support resources there as well, including recorded um, overviews of the software, not only the student side, but also the admin side. So today we are going to focus only on the student side. We're going to take a big focus for families and parents who want to know more about it and want to know some extra tips and best practices on things they can do to help support their student at home. So I wanted to start by just sharing some login information. You have some different options on how to help your student log in. So what you can do is that you can have your students use a Chromebook or a computer, and the website, our general website for the RHD software is www.rhdiscovery.com. So that's www.rhdiscovery.com. That's the link you'd want to use on a computer or a Chromebook. That will work great there. You're also going to need your school's site ID and your student's user ID. Your teacher will likely have provided this, and if not, feel free, reach out to your teacher and they can get that for you. Now, if your teacher has given you a school-specific link, then go ahead and use that instead of this general link, okay? Now, you also have the option to have your student work on it on an iPad. This is great because then maybe it's a touch screen, and that might make it even easier for a student in kindergarten or first grade. And so now on an iPad, for it to work, you do have two different ways to use it. You can simply pull up Safari and type in that same link that could be used on a computer or Chromebook, www.rhdiscovery.com, or you can use the iPad specific app. This is really nice. It customizes a lot of the things on there for an iPad specifically. So to do that, you would need to actually download two apps. There is one called the RH Discovery Clubhouse, and the other is called RH Discovery Games. So if you just search for RH Discovery in the App Store, that would do it. You'd see both pop right up. Now your student doesn't have to toggle in between two different apps. They'll always want to log in to the RH Discovery Clubhouse app. That's the main one. And it will actually communicate with the Games app in the background. Okay, so you'll need both apps, but they only use the Clubhouse app, and it will communicate with Games in the background. All right, now if you are a school if your student goes to a school who's asked you to have your student log in through Clever, then that's great. Have them do that. They're going to access Clever through the link that your school provides, and then you're going to see a Reading Horizons icon, a Reading Horizons Discovery icon right in their Clever portal. They don't have to log into Clever and then log into Discovery separately. They can just simply log into Clever and that app will be there. So your student's teacher probably gave you some directions, but just make sure you've got your student's site ID and your student's user ID, because you'll need those two pieces of information, okay? So now let's go ahead and let's take a moment, and I just want to show you what the login looks like when you're logging in through a computer, Chromebook, or Safari on an iPad. Or if you're on the Clubhouse app, it will also look like this too. So your student would go to this webpage, www.rhdiscovery.com, and then here is what that will display as. The iPad will just pull this up automatically if you click on the Clubhouse app, and then you're going to need to type in your student's site ID and your student's user ID. So site ID tells us what school your student is in, and then user ID tells us which student is which student is logging in, so we can make sure their work is always getting saved and going into the right account there. So those two pieces of information are required for your student to be able to log in. Now, if your teacher has provided a slightly different link, if they didn't give you this rhdiscovery.com link, they might have given you a link that's specific to their school. For example, my school is less accredited than the school your child attends. This is the School of Jenna, and my site ID is simply the name of my school, Jenna. And so my school specific link, I can just put Jenna, and every school can do this. You can just put the site ID in front of rhdiscovery.com. So in this example, it would be jenna.rhdiscovery.com. Now, you wouldn't use this site ID because, again, my school, the School of Jenna, it's not very accredited. You'll want to make sure you've got your students' your school's specific site ID so that you're logging into the right school. You won't be able to log in without your school's specific site ID. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just show you when I type that in jenna.rhdiscovery.com, it just pulls up the name of my school, Jenna's Sample School or Jay's Sample School here. And I'm going to go ahead and type in one of my sample students. We don't like to use real students in overviews on the software, so I do have a sample student here we're going to use so we can dive in together. So we'll go ahead and we'll log in as the student. And you can see the software is going to ask, is this your name? Not only do we give that in print, we give that verbally, because for students who are learning to read, we want them to be able to have the option to hear instructions as well too. So you'll see that often throughout the program where they're getting those instructions in multiple ways. So in this case, I'm going to say, yes, this is Sabina. Let's go ahead and log in together. And then as we go in, I want to be the first to welcome you to the RH Discovery Clubhouse. You're probably hearing that background noise with, you know, birds chirping, and it's like we're in a real clubhouse. We're outside. It's the noise of outside. We have a lot of constant feedback like that for your student. It might be that background noise. It might be our hosts of the clubhouse, Max and Maya, saying, terrific, great job, close, try again. We provide a lot of feedback because that really helps keep student engagement high as they're going through. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and point out that the very first thing your student will do in the software is they're going to have this video button here, this video pop up. And they can click on that video button. And it's going to welcome them, give them a quick overview of the program, introduce them to Max and Maya, the two cartoon characters who are going to be with them the whole time they're working in the program. And so we just want them to have some quick insights into what they're going to be doing and what they'll, you know, be able to click on as they're using this program. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this video pop-up, and I want to talk through a couple of the different sections that are available to your student in the Reading Horizons Discovery software. The first section is this next section. So I'm going to go ahead and click next, take us in there so we can all hang out and check it out together. So I'm going to pause this lesson here because I want to tell you the next button is the number one best tip that you can give to your student. So this is my first best practice for you, is that when you tell your student, okay, it's time for you to use the Reading Horizons Discovery Clubhouse, add a line. Say, okay, it's time for you to use the Reading Horizons Discovery Clubhouse. Make sure to click the next button. Encouraging them to go to next means that they're going to do lessons. They're going to get instruction and practice on the skills they're learning. They're learning new skills there. There will be some assessments there that help us customize the software and help us really make it, you know, the perfect fit for your student. So that next button is the best thing that your student can do as they're going through. Now, my student is not brand new. She's been working on the program. And so she is currently working on phonetic skill number 4. Now, phonetic skill number 4 says that when a word ends in silent E, the vowel is long. So do you see any words on this screen that end in silent E? I'll give you just a moment to take a look. And this lesson, I've actually turned my sound off, so oh, whoops, I'm going to turn it off real quick so that our voices aren't conflicting. But this lesson is actually going to talk through that silent E rule, give your student a lot of practice with words that have silent E. For example, they're going to show how the word can changes really significantly when you add an E to the end. It then becomes the word cane. And then it's going to not only do an intro for the lesson, but also some instruction and then some practice activities and reinforcement as well. Now, depending on your student, each student could see a different version of this lesson. Or of any lesson, really, because some of the initial assessments they do at the start of the program help customize how much instruction each student sees. So it's really going to differentiate for your students' needs as they come into each lesson. We don't skip lessons, but if your student already has a strength there, they'll move through that lesson much faster than a student who needs much more in-depth instruction. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to head back to the Clubhouse here. I just wanted to show you a brief look at what a lesson could look like here as your student is really building those phonics and decoding skills and really working on strengthening and their ability to read. So I'm going to go ahead and head back to the Clubhouse. And again, that next section of the software, that green button in the bottom right-hand corner, that is the #1 area where you want your student to spend time. There are a lot of other really great areas we're going to touch on next, and it's great if your student wants to work in these too. But we recommend that they do spend a good amount of time in this next button. Okay, so the next area I want to talk about is the vocab section. So vocab is a really helpful area. When I click on this, you're going to see my students' chapters pull up. So students will see as many as 6 chapters in the program if they're in 3rd grade. If they are in a younger grade, they might see fewer chapters here. For example, kindergarten will only do the first 2 chapters. And then 1st grade will have the first 4 chapters, 2nd grade will have 5 chapters, and 3rd grade will have 6 chapters. So depending on your student's grade, they may see a different number of chapters here, and that's okay. Just shows how much content they potentially could get to in the program. And I'm going to go ahead and my student has the whole program unlocked as my sample student. So as my 3rd grade student here, she could click into chapter 6 if she wanted to work on vocab in chapter 6 because she's pretty far into the program. Now, your student is only going to be able to click on the chapter that they're currently working on or a previous chapter that they have completed lessons in. So for example, if your student is working in chapter 3, then they can click on vocab for chapters 1, 2, or 3 as they're going through. So I'm going to go ahead, let's click on chapter 3. And let's take a look at the word wall for chapter 3. So all the words that are here are words my student has earned for their wall that they've decoded here. And let's get some more. So I'm going to go ahead and use this next button. You're going to find that your student probably likes the next button because it does something really cool. They earn coins here. You'll see that my student has their coin counter up at the top. Every time I spell and decode a new word here, I'm earning a new coin for that word. The other place your student is earning coins is in that next section that we looked at before. They're earning coins for taking assessments and doing lessons, doing practice in those lessons. So those are the 2 sections that they're going to love because they're getting a lot of coins there and they're so motivated by those. We'll talk about what those do for your student in just a minute. Okay, and then let's go ahead and let's push next in this vocab section here. And it's going to have my student decode a word. Well, first it's going to have my student spell a word as they're going through. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn on the sound so we can hear the word. And the narrator's already read it, but on almost every page there is a blue little speaker with a repeat arrow around it. If your student ever misses something, an instruction or information that the program says, they can always use that repeat button. Okay, great. So now it's going to go ahead and it's going to have my students spell the word peak. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to get this one wrong. And I'm going to spell the wrong word here. Okay, now it's going to have me go ahead and prove it. Now this is a phonetic skill 5 word. So this means that this word has adjacent vowels. So it has the vowels E and A here together in the middle. And there are 9 vowel patterns that a student would learn in this lesson in the software. So they'd have a good idea of which vowel pattern to use if it's at the beginning of a word versus the middle of the word versus the end of the word. It really helps them know because phonetic skill 5 says that when you have 2 adjacent vowels, the second vowel is silent and the first vowel is long. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that second vowel silent and the first vowel long. And by knowing what those 9 adjacent vowel patterns are, gives me a really good idea of how to guess. You know, even though that second letter is silent, I can have a good idea of what that second letter is so that I can still know how to spell the word. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put those in. Once your student has decoded the word, once your student has decoded a word, I'm going to mute the narrator on the software again here. It's going to show a picture if it's a word that can be easily visualized, because vocab building is an important part of reading instruction for students, especially students who are learning to read or strengthening their reading skills. And then it's also going to give a definition of the word and a context sentence as well. There's a lot of fun things you can do to even help support the vocab section, and we'll talk about those at the end of our conversation today. We're going to do an overview on the student side first, and then we'll come back to this vocab section and talk about some extra things you could do with it here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to head out of this word, and I'm going to head back to my word wall. And then I'm going to go ahead and head back to my chapter selection section. And I want to show you this little ABC tape here. It's kind of hidden all the way at the bottom. And it's hidden on purpose. Most students aren't going to find this. And that's because not every student, you don't necessarily need it. But something that can be helpful if your student is working on letter formation or if your student is working on pronunciation, you know, saying the right letter sound for each letter, then you can come in and you can help them find this and help them click on it. And if they're in kindergarten, they might be doing this as part of their lessons themselves anyways. If they're beyond kindergarten, they still need some support with that. This is a great optional part of the software that can be helpful for them. So they can come in, they can click on any letter. For example, I'll click on A, and they're going to see the formation. We use top, down, left, right formation strategy here. And your student can take their finger and they can trace after the mouse. So they can follow what the narrator is doing here with their finger just by tracing the screen. This is an excellent pre-formation activity for students to do to strengthen formation. The other thing that they can do is they can click on this little ABC in the blue talk arrow here, and they can click on any letter that they'd like to hear. I'll click on the letter F, and they can see the narrator say the name of the letter and the sound of the letter. So in this case, she's saying F. I love teaching this letter. I don't know why it's so fun. I always say to my students, okay, I want you guys to say the sound of the letter F as loud as you can. Let's say it so loud the roof shakes. And we'll all say, and it's such a quiet letter. It's hard to shake the roof with that one. So they all have a lot of fun doing that. So the letter F is really fun. But they can come in, they can hear any letter or letter combinations like murmur diphthongs. When you have that R sound that a little bit takes over the other sound there. Or you also have your digraphs, your special vowel sounds as well too. So all of those are great options. Now you might see this record section here. What this is going to do is if you have a microphone built into the computer or the iPad that you're using or a Chromebook, your student can actually record themselves saying the sound of the letter, and then they can play the narrator's voice and then play their sound again. For some students who are struggling to verbalize the sound of a letter, the correct verbalization of a letter, it can be really helpful for them to hear what they're saying while they're not saying it, and then hear the difference between their voice and the narrator's voice. So they can record and then play their own, how they're saying the letter, and then they could come up and play and one of the letters up here and hear how the narrator's saying that letter. That could be a difference maker for a student who's struggling, in order to just get a little extra insight into that. Now, there is one other section here in this ABC tool, and that is the airflow. This can be helpful for students if you want to show them voiced letters versus voiceless letters. For example, I could show the short letter of A. You can see how the voice box gets that little curvy line there when I click on that, showing that that's a voiced letter. Your throat will vibrate when you make that letter. It shows as the airflow comes up and as they're going through. You watch A and then you might compare it as we watch F. You can kind of see the difference there. How F is not a voiced letter, that's a voiceless letter. So this can be helpful for students as they're going through. There is also a voiced and voiceless lesson that students can take in the program too. So that is helpful as students are just wanting to see airflow and how they're practicing. Now for some students, depending on their grade, this could be more of a distraction, showing that airflow section, and they might get more benefit out of the drawing tool or the talking tool that shows the lip and the mouth formation specifically. So depending on your child and your student, you can just decide what would be helpful for them. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And now again, this is a 100% optional part of the program. This whole vocab section is optional. Your student is actually never prompted to go here. What's great about vocab is not only are they learning vocab words or practicing vocab words if they already know them, and getting extra reinforcement on those skills, really applying the skills into that single word, single syllable word or multisyllabic word, but they're also getting spelling practice. Did you guys notice when I was using the next button in vocab and it gave me a new word, it had me spell it first? That's a really big opportunity for students to get a little extra spelling practice. I'm going to ask you guys a question. I want to see if you know the answer. I want you to think to yourselves for just a minute. Do you think that students learn the ability to read or decode first? Or do students learn the ability to spell or encode first? Which one of those skills come first? If they're learning a new skill, let's say phonetic skill number 4, like we were talking about earlier, those words with the silent E at the end that make your vowel long. Do you think your student would learn how to read or spell that skill first? Give you a second to think of an answer in your head. All right, if you said read, you are correct. Spelling is a more complex skill. And so students typically will learn, not typically, they will learn how to read first and spell second. And that's because they need time to internalize that skill that they're learning and reading before they then learn the spelling of that skill. So coming into practice, they'll do their lesson on that skill first before vocab words are unlocked in the vocab section for that skill. So if your student ever runs out of vocab words, that just means they need to do a new lesson or more lessons. So let them know if they're out of words in their vocab section, tell them to go back to next in the main Clubhouse, and they can access new lessons there. Okay, great. Next, I want to take you to the library. So the library on the student side is a place where they're getting some extra reading practice. We have decodable books. These books are 90 to 100% decodable for every lesson starting in chapter 2. And so a student will earn a new little book in every skill-based lesson starting in chapter 2. in a new lesson itself. So in this next button down here, once they've earned it in their lesson, it then is added to their library up here. So they're always earning new books, chapter 2 and beyond. So when I click on the library here, you're going to see my student has some crates as bookshelves. And as soon as they have earned or unlocked a new book, let's try this one. This is called Bill and the Strong Smell. Then they're going to see these books unlock in their library as they go through. Now, all of my books are unlocked because my student is at the end of the program. She's finished everything as my sample student. But if a book was locked, it would be grayed out. See these books that my mouse is rolling over underneath the dinosaur here in the far right crate? They're not lighting up compared to how this green book right next to them lights up and how other books are lighting up. If a book isn't lighting up, that means it's not unlocked yet. If a book is lighting up, that means that your student has access to it and they can click on it. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to click on this green books in this green book in the third crate here. It's called Sage. And this is our book. I believe it's our Phonetic Skill 4 book. So the point of these books is to really help students practice the skills that they're learning in the software. So in the lesson, when they learned about Phonetic Skill 4, words that have a silent E on the end, and that then makes their vowel long, that helps them be able to prove how to say, how to read those words. And so then they can come in, and as part of that lesson, they'll then see this book, but then they can get extra practice in the library reading the book as well too. The reason why the library is so important, that extra practice is so important, is because of one word, and we call it transfer. Transfer is a really critical part of Reading Horizon. That is where students take a skill out of isolation and into context. We don't want to just teach a skill in isolation because that's where it will stay in a student's brain. We want them to be applying it to text, to word level, to sentence level, and here to story level text, so that they're exposed to that skill in context and they can transfer that skill out of isolation and into context. Because context is how they're going to see that skill in the real world. So we need them to be able to really see that skill and understand how to approach words like that, how to attack words like that when you're reading. We want to break students' habits of, or not let them even build them in the beginning, habits of seeing the first letter and guessing what the word might be, or skipping over the word if they don't know it. We really want to give them the tools to attack a word and be really successful as they are encountering new words that they've never seen before, because that still happens to me as an adult. And so I want students to have the ability to really, and we want students to have the ability to really attack new words and be really confident in their reading and decoding. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to show you the book Sage. Now this is a chapter 3 book as they're going through. You'll see some, the text of the story pops up as they're going through, and you can start to see as the story unfolds. And you're going to see something kind of fun here. There are a lot of words here that use that skill as they're going through. And so at the very end of each story, well, it will say the end, but then it will also have some comprehension questions. It will ask anywhere from 3 to 7 comprehension questions, depending on that book's style or difficulty. It will ask a couple of comprehension questions. So this first one, the story is about, and then the student will give it their best answer. I'm going to get a couple of these wrong so you can see what happens. And it does not give student feedback on right or wrong answers at this point. It's just gathering data for your child's teacher so that they can see where comprehension strengths are happening or where maybe some gaps are happening, so they can help work to support that as they're going through the program. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to head back to the library here. And now this was my second time. This was my student's second time reading this book. Sabina here, Sabina Sample. The first time she read that book, was in a lesson, and the second time was just now when we were in the library. Now, because I didn't finish my comprehension questions, I have not earned my gold coin yet, but you can see this book right next to it on brine shrimp does have a gold coin. So you can see that once a student has read it twice, they then get a little gold coin. Something different is going to happen once there's a gold coin there. They actually have the option to have that story read to them. So now you'll see little headphones just popped up in the bottom left-hand corner of this book. And if your student wants to take another look at that book and now have it read to them, if there were any words that were a little tricky and they want to hear that word, they can now have the story read to them. So this is a great option on the student side as well. So I want you to notice that is not until the third time. The first time in the lesson and the second time, their first time seeing it in the library, those first two reads of that book, we're gathering some insight for the teacher on them. We're looking at words per minute, how long they took to read the book. We're also looking at comprehension scores, so we can see where strengths are and, and gaps maybe as well. So as they're going through, those are some of the areas in the library. But once they've read it twice, that gold coin appears, and they've now fully unlocked that book and earned a coin, meaning they can have it read to them. So that's pretty fun. Now you might think, wow, 3 times, that's a lot for my student to read the same story. Keep in mind though, this is really helping them build fluency. And a best practice is you can have them go into their library and click on a book and read it to you. So feel free to help them build that fluency and be part of their third or fourth read as they're going through. If they've got any books that are unlocked, you can click on those and they can then read that book to you as they're going through. And because they're decodable, students get excited about these books because they've learned the skills that are needed in order to be successful as they're reading them. So it's very empowering for students, and it's a really good confidence builder for them to be able to come in and read these. So they might be excited to read it to you as well too. I do want to mention one other thing, and that is that this first box here is the kindergarten box. That's the upper left-hand corner. And the kindergarten books are going to unlock automatically for any students who are in first through third grade. So if your child is in first through third grade, then they're by default going to see all of these kindergarten books unlocked. So they can click on any of those as practice or something different to do while they're working on lessons. They are the main difference. They're still supporting skills. The main difference between these books and the other books that are going to be unlocked one at a time is level. These are going to be much easier. The 1 through 3 books are going to be a higher lexile level. The sentences are longer. There's more pages. The vocabulary might be just a little more challenging. So so keep that in mind. If your student really loves the library, they might even, just as they start going into the software, just go right to this first crate and start reading those. And then they might say, I'm out of books, what do I do? And in that case, you want to let them know you can earn new books and lessons. So make sure you're using the next button in your Clubhouse so you can earn new books. And that's how you will get more of those books to read. Okay, and I love to hear that because that means they're developing a passion for reading. And really that's the goal. Okay, so here's that next button there. Okay, so we've talked about next, we've talked about the vocab section. Again, this is optional, but this is a really great section where they get spelling practice and extra reinforcement on those skills. So feel free to remind them, don't forget to do a little vocab at the end of today. And there's also the library section. Okay, a fourth area that I wanted to touch on is the games. Now, games are really fun. Games will actually pop up in 2 different places in the software. You have the actual games section here, and then also in the next button, when a student is working on a chapter test or an assessment, the software will sometimes pop up a quick mini game. We call this a brain break. When it's an activity that takes some time in the software, we want to make sure accuracy is really high and the student doesn't burn out their attention span or anything like that. The next button will sometimes pop games up into the program as well. So that is, there are two places where games can happen. They will happen much less often in this next section, but they do happen. So I wanted to mention that. In the game section itself, students are charged coins in order to play the games. So you can see on my student name up here, Sabina has 265 coins, and I can come in and I can choose the game that I'd like to play as the student. Now your student might not be able to click on all 6 games like my student can. And that's to do with what lesson, what chapter they're working in. They unlock a new game in every chapter of the program. So if they are a kinder student, they're going to unlock 2 games in the program. They're a first grade student, they can unlock as many as 4 games in the program. Second grade student can unlock as up to 5 games, and a third grade student can unlock all 6. So the games are pretty great because they do help support the skills. So this is a really great way for students to build automaticity over the skills and really become automatic as they are decoding and marking, proving, or decoding each word. So I'm going to click on this game called Safari Run. And in this game, we'll give it just a minute to load here. In this game, students have to, we'll choose the easy option. Students have to decode words in order to play, in order to earn these water balloons to play the game. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, but you can see I'm using water balloons as I go through. So, and to earn more water balloons, I have to decode more words. So they're getting a lot more practice with decoding as they go through. I'm going to go ahead and exit. We'll head back to the menu. Um, but you could see as I was playing that, I was using up my water balloons pretty quick. We give them a taste of how fun it is. And then when they run out of water balloons, they have to do some skill practice in order to earn more. So it's a way to get them excited about learning and really help reinforce past skills that have been taught. Because each game is using skills, that's why they see one new game in every chapter. It's also a way to motivate them to move forward. Now the cost to play a game, it's 15 coins for 15 minutes. And if they, it's the end of their Reading Horizons Discovery software time, and your student says, wait, I'm in the middle of a game. I paid 15 coins. I can't leave right now. Just let them know it's okay. You'll be refunded. We refund them whatever minutes they don't use. So they're charged 15 coins to play. And if they only play for 1 minute, like I just did, then they'll be refunded 14 coins for the 14 minutes they didn't use. So I just want you to know that as you're going through, and you can see my refund just came in up here in my, my upper menu. Okay, so if your student is asking, how do I click on some of these games that are locked right now? Just let them know. Do more lessons. Go to your next button and do more lessons. As you finish each chapter, as you finish all the lessons in a chapter and the chapter test in a chapter, you will unlock a new game. So that's how you get new games. That's pretty much how you can get more of all of it. That's how you get more vocab words. That's how you get more books in your library. That's how you get more games. And that's how you get more coins too. I want to click on this dashboard up here in the upper right-hand corner where my student's name is. And I want to click on that and I want to show you some of the things that are in your student's dashboard. So you can come in, you've got this nice map right here in the background. You can see how far your student is in the program, and that gives them an idea of their progress. And you can also see these trophies here. So, so my student has 6 trophies because she's finished all 6 chapters. And so you can see there's a new trophy for each chapter as they go through. And then there's also the store. So the store tends to be a student favorite, and the store is really exciting. This is the other place where they can spend coins. They can spend coins in that games section, and they can also come into the store and they can spend coins here too. So when I click on store, you're going to see that I have a lot of choices in what I can get in this little store here. It will give your student a lot of options in what they can do to their clubhouse. For example, a student could paint the walls of their clubhouse pink, or they could upgrade their rug to a new rug. They can even change what's outside. Instead of their windows just showing, clouds and fun things like that, they could simply change it to outer space so that they're in outer space. Okay, I apologize for the wait. I think with so many people working from home this week, maybe my home internet is struggling just a bit. More than normal, so I apologize. This usually is much faster on your real student accounts. Okay, so so as soon as this loads, I'll show you a few things. But, but right here, you can come in and, for example, you could go to the home decor section of the store, and you can say, you know what, that bookshelf that is my library, really it's not the nicest bookshelf, and I'd like to upgrade that to a real bookshelf, or maybe it's the table. You can come in, you can buy the table, and then you can click on it, and then that would change what the compass is sitting on. Now it's a real table. It's not just that little thing here. You could also go to number 2 here, and that would let you, so we're still in the home decor section. And then in number 2, that lets you change the wall color. You can come in and choose any of those options. Let's do some wallpaper today. I am definitely not the interior designer in the family, so forgive my choices here. You can choose your floor. So let's upgrade the floor. Let's do a little green tile here. We can put in some green tile for the students as well. You can do some new window options as well as you're going through. I mean, you can really do anything. You can change maximize close. There are so many options as you go through. I want to show you a student who has really customized um, their program. So I'm going to go ahead and click into my student Chance. We're going to log in as a different student now. And I want to show you what Chance has done to his clubhouse to give you an idea of how exciting your student can make their clubhouse. This is really fun. So Chance has really decked this out. He loves pink, so he's got lots of fun choices there. Pink dinosaur, pink walls, um, pink blinds, curtains, bead curtains on the door. So all kinds of fun things for his clubhouse. So your student can do a lot with that option. He's even customized his games dartboard here as well too. So there are a lot of fun things that the students can come in and do, and that makes it really motivating. Now, I do want to say that your student's teacher has the ability to turn off any of these sections in the Clubhouse at any time. So if your vocab is not working, your library is not working, games, or the store isn't working, your child's teacher might have turned that off. Usually they do that if they want your student to work on an assessment or focus more on lessons, or if they're seeing too much time in the store or in games. And so if you feel like your student would really love that and you want it to turn back on, feel free to reach out to your teacher and see if there's something your student can do. Maybe they need to spend, X amount of time in lessons in order to earn the ability to have that turned back on. So feel free to reach out to your teacher if you have any questions about that. I should say to your student's teacher as you're going through. Okay, so I also wanted to talk about some best practices. So that's a quick overview on the software. And if that's all you need, you're welcome to leave at this point. I did want to share a couple of best practices. If you have a student who's struggling with reading or who is maybe getting extra support from an interventionist at the school or was before school closures, or maybe your child is in special education, I want to talk about a few best practices, things you can do using the software to provide a little extra support for them. So first, I want to set the stage, and I'm actually going to bring a new screen up for us to just take a look at. And I want to talk about a teacher's direct instruction lesson for just a minute. When a teacher gives a direct instruction lesson to a student, there is a part of the lesson that's called dictation. Dictation is really critical to the success of the program, especially for students who are struggling because it is hitting every learning modality. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to show you a quick video on what dictation looks like, and I want to teach you how to facilitate this at home with your child or your student um, there together. So if you have a student who is struggling a little bit and you just want to provide a little extra support, or even if they're not struggling and you just want to provide extra support and really help them, in every way possible as they are working on that reading instruction, then feel free to continue with us, and we're going to focus on dictation. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to play this video here. This is about 8 minutes long. And this is a video of a teacher introducing dictation to her kindergarten students. Now, if your student is a little older, this still will work great for your older students too. So don't feel like this is only for kindergarten. This is for all grades. We recommend this for kinder through adult learners. I actually teach an adult class for um, refugees who are new to English, and we use dictation with adults there too. So this is for every grade of students. This is a part of a process that's built into every direct instruction lesson that a teacher might give to a student. So I just want to show you this, help you know what to do if you want to bring this in as a supplement to your software practice. Okay, we'll go ahead and watch this video here.
When I dictate a letter to you, I'm going to say it twice. You're going to repeat it twice, and then you're going to write it once. How many times will I say it? Two times. How many times will you repeat it? Two times. And how many times will you write it? One time. Okay, let's practice our arms. So you guys put your arms out. Put your arms out like you're going to catch your name. This time let's do lowercase b. Catch it. Lowercase b. Now you say it back. Lowercase b, lowercase b. And then you would write it one time. Now wait just a minute before you write. I want to show you something. Put your pen flat on the ground, please. You have a board that looks like this, right? It's even smaller. It is. I'm not going to use the whole board. You're right, it is even smaller. But this is what it looks like, right? We're going to write in columns. So we're going to write all the letters that I say down this side first. And then we're going to start over here and write them down this side next. Okay? And I don't want you to write it teeny tiny like this, because if you write it teeny tiny like that, my grandma eyes cannot see it. Okay? But I also don't want you to write it big like this. Because will you be able to write any other letters? No. So when we write it, we're going to write it just a nice size so the teacher can see. Okay? All right. So are you guys ready? Yeah. Okay, boards flat down, arms out. Okay, here we go. Please write an uppercase D, uppercase B. Repeat it. Uppercase D, uppercase D. Now how many times are you going to write it? One time. Everybody write it one time. Uppercase B. And once you're done writing it, I want you to put your lid back on and put it right back down by your toe. Excellent. We're not erasing. Don't erase anything. All right, let's do the next one. So your marker should be flat on the ground. Ready to catch my letter? Okay, let's do a lowercase a, lowercase a, lowercase a, lowercase a. How many times will you write it? One time, and write it right underneath your uppercase D. So everybody needs to write a lowercase a, small curve, short line. Put your lid back on your marker and put it right back down. short line and a short line. Excellent. Good. Hey, here we go. Let's do another one. Put your arms out. All right, we're going to do lowercase b, lowercase b, lowercase b, lowercase b. Excellent. Right under your uppercase F, please write a lowercase b. Remember, you write it and you put your lid back on your marker. Long line, small curve. Put your lid back on your marker and put it right back down. Excellent. All right, we're going to do one more. Here we go. Put your arms out. You ready to catch it? Lowercase g, lowercase g, lowercase g, lowercase g. Small curve, long line, small curve. Lowercase g. Oh, thank you so much. She wrote it. She put her lid on. She folded her arms on top of her board. She is ready to go. Your G's are looking excellent. Hey, that was the last time I named them. Now let's see if you can do them by sound. Do you think you can do some by sound? Okay, we're not coloring. Put your lid on your marker, please. Okay, put your arms out. Please write the letter that makes the sound D, 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 D. Okay, so write the letter that makes the sound D. Notice that I've gone all the way to the bottom of my board. So I'm going to start right back up here in this next column. I'm going to write the letter that makes the sound D. We make the letter that makes the sound D. And when we do our letters with the sounds, we always do lowercase. So can you all? Hey, good. You've got an uppercase here. Will you, don't erase it. I don't want you to erase it. But right next to it, will you write a lowercase d? Good. Now, will you just put an X through that uppercase d? Same with you. Good. You've got your lowercase d. Will you just put an X through your uppercase d? Good. Is it okay if we make a mistake? Is it okay? Yeah, it's okay. That's how we learn. So if we make a mistake, we just write the correct one to the side of it, and we cross out. So if I had a D here, and this is what I was supposed to write, I write the new one, and then I cross this one out. So I can see, oh, that's what it looks like. Okay? Okay, markers should be down. Put your arms out so you're ready to catch my next sound. Put your marker down, please. Thank you. Please print the letter that makes the sound. Good job. What letter makes the sound? Go ahead and write it on your board. So write it right below the letter that makes the sound. Write it and then put your marker back down. Okay, one more with the sound. Ready? Put your arms out so you can catch it. Here we go. Please print the letter that makes the sound.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause that video there for just a moment. Here we go. And I want to talk through a few things that she's doing. I want you to notice she's holding that word, or the word is coming from her lips. So she's giving that word verbally to students 2 times. So they're getting verbal input into their brain as they hear that. So she's giving it twice verbally, and she's throwing it with her arms from her lips to them twice as she says it. So if the letter is uppercase D, then they would be doing that, with those arm movements as they're going through. So watch for those arm movements as she's doing the next one. And then the students are then throwing that word back. So if they're an auditory learner, they have the opportunity to say that out loud, and that really helps strengthen the auditory connection in the brain. They then write the letter or the word, if you're doing a word, with your student, if they're a little older than kindergarten, or if they're in the second half of the year of kindergarten. And they would then write it. That creates that hand-brain connection. And also, if your student learns by writing, that student is then going to get the benefit. Then the student reads it at the end. They read it as a class. If you've just got one student, one child there with you, then you'll just have your one student read it. You can read it with them on the first couple. You might let them read it on their own as you get towards the end, and let them build a little independence. So feel free to do either way. But by having them read it, if your student learns best by reading, you're then capturing that learning style as well. What's really cool is the process of dictation allows the student to take all this information, verbal, auditory, that hand-brain connection, and writing and reading, lets them take all this information and process it through the orthographic loop. By doing all these steps, they're completing the orthographic loop in the brain, and it's significantly strengthening their ability to learn and retain this skill. So we'll go ahead and we'll keep watching. I just wanted to pause for a moment and point that out as we're going through.
And you know what I am so impressed with? Sometimes we mess up our B's and our D's, but you guys have been doing them excellent. I'm really impressed with that. So now listen, we're going to play a fun game. It's called the eraser game. Don't erase anything yet. Put your lids on your markers. Put your markers back down by your toe. Good. Put it right by your toe. Super. Now pick up your eraser, and I'm going to tell you what to erase. But before you erase it, you have to tell me what letter it is. Okay? So you have to point to it first, and then you have to tell me what it is, and then we erase it. All right, so everybody point to the letter that makes the sound. Point to it first. Okay, what letter is it? F. Go ahead and erase it. There are two F's. Can we erase both F's? Yes, we can. So erase both of your F's. Yep. Okay, let's see. Please erase the lowercase a. Oh, point to it first. Point to the lowercase a. Excellent. Okay, go ahead and erase it. What letter was that?
All right, so I want to talk about the eraser game for just a moment as well. And so the eraser game is that one you just saw play here. Point to the letter, and she's giving a hint. If you're doing a whole word, so if you had your student write a list of words and now they're erasing, what's really cool is you could give a variety of hints. You could say this word starts with the sound b, b, or this word ends with the sound k, k, or this word rhymes with, this word means the same thing as the word. You can give a whole variety of hints here. So feel free to be creative. This can be a really fun game. The goal of this game is to build a little phonemic awareness. So using things like initial sound, ending sound, rhyming. Those are really great clues to use. You can also use this game to build vocabulary. So words that mean this word means, or this means the same thing as, can also be a great hint. And the biggest goal of this game is that there's one more opportunity for your student to practice reading the word. So before they erase, have them do a quick read of the word as well. So the eraser game is a really fun thing you can do as part of strengthening this for your students. You can see you need to be in person to facilitate this. A teacher could facilitate this through a virtual learning space as well too, but it's very hard to build into the software where you don't have a teacher there responding or real-time response, if that makes sense. So dictation is not built into the software. It's the only part of a lesson that's not. So if you want to provide a little added value or strengthen it a little bit more for your student, doing dictation is a great way to do it. And let me show you how to use the software to facilitate it. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to come back to the Reading Horizons Discovery software. I'm going to log in as my student Sabina. I'll go ahead and say, yes, this is me. And I want you guys to take a look at the vocab section in a whole new light. So here's Sabina's vocab section here. And when we go into this section, remember they can click on any chapter that they've done lessons in so far or any chapters before that. So if we're wanting to work in chapter 3, and if you're wanting to support what your student has most recently done in the software, that would be my recommendation. Then you might just choose the highest chapter they have available to them. And then when you click that next button, that's going to let you hear the word. So in this case, the student is asked to spell the word truck. So instead of just having them type it into the computer, You might use this word for dictation. You might say, okay, hands to the ready, hold your hands up to your mouth and throw the word to your student. They're then, if I'm the student, they're then going to catch that word and bring it up to their ears. So they're going to then bring that word up to their ears. Truck, truck, while they say it twice. So you say it twice while you throw it. They repeat it back twice. As well too, and then you're going to have them write the word on a piece of paper, mark the word, um, and read the word. If they made a mistake, that's okay. That's part of how we learn. I make mistakes all the time. Let them know that's okay. That is an opportunity to learn. Um, You'll notice the teacher in the video has students using markers and whiteboards. That's a best practice because it's really easy to see. It's easy for students to grip those bigger markers as they're going through. If you don't have that, that's okay. You could use a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. You could, um, if you have a whiteboard marker but you don't have a whiteboard, a plate actually works great. If you've got a ceramic plate, it would wipe off perfectly without any residue. So there are actually a variety of things you can do there. What's really fun about using a marker and a whiteboard that can erase is that it's much easier to facilitate the eraser game when you have the ability to erase. Now, if you don't have an eraser, a sock, a baby sock works great if there's a younger sibling. A dark colored sock of any age person in the family would work great. Even, a tissue from the tissue box would work great. Or if you have any extra toilet paper right now, that would also do it. That's a great eraser too. So, okay, so that's how you can facilitate dictation using the vocab section. It will just keep giving you new words. Once your student has done dictation, they can then type it in here and then see the definition, the context as you go through. Now, one thing you didn't see because that teacher was doing dictation with letters is we recommend every time you do dictation that you give the student a context sentence as well. And that's because context informs, or I should say meaning informs spelling. And so if it is a word that can be spelled two different ways, that sentence can really help them as they're going through. So for example, if I were to have my students spell the word truck, I would say truck, truck. Okay, go ahead and give it back to me. They would say truck, truck. And then I would say, the truck drove down the road. Okay, so that extra context sentence for you to give to the student can really be helpful so they can put that word into, context and just capture a little bit of the meaning. That will reduce the difficulty of this activity for students. Okay, and so it's really important to do that context sentence if you're doing a whole word and not just a letter. Okay, so I'm going to head out of the vocab section now. And I just want to review a couple of best practices that we touched on. Using dictation in the vocab section, that is a great way to strengthen this for students. It gives them the ability to be writing, to be reading, and to be hearing that, in a whole new way, and really applying that skill a little more. Speaking of application, the library is another best practice, and having your student read some of those books that have been unlocked to you. So having them read them out loud gives them extra fluency practice, and nothing can replace your understanding of your student's ability to read more than having them read to you. So that can be a really great activity. It really helps your student as they're going through and working on fluency. And all those little books are decodable based on what they've learned so far. So it's a place where they can really be successful as they read. Okay, another best practice is to click that next button. This is where all their new instruction is going to happen. And so while games are so fun and fantastic and a great reinforcement, um, they are not able to learn new skills in games. So next lets them move forward, lets them add more to their software and program. They get more vocab words available. They can have more library books available. They get more coins, more games become available. So the next button is a great place to encourage your student to click and to go as they are going in. One last best practice that I want to give to you is also in the vocab section. So I'm going to click into this one last time. You can see how versatile it is. If you want to do some extra things outside of the software, you can really see how versatile this section can be. But right here you have a word wall. These are the words that the student has spelled and decoded already in that chapter. And your student could maybe pick 2 or 3 or 5 words if they're in an older grade, if they're maybe, working in a little more advanced way, you can have them pick a number of words and write a story that uses all of those words. If, depending on your grade, you might just have them write one sentence. Pick one word and write a sentence that uses that word, and then draw a picture of the word. Or you might have them pick 3 words and write a story, and then draw a picture that goes with your story. That's a great way to transfer into writing. So if your student is already reading the little books to you, they're doing great transferring into reading, this is a great way to take it to the next level, to transfer those skills into writing as well, because that will take, a little extra practice as well too. Okay, well, thank you so much for staying with us as we covered the student side of the Reading Horizons Discovery software. If you have any questions at all, I want to encourage you to reach out to your student's teacher. They have a lot of insight and they can really help you understand the different parts of the program and different things you can do to support your student at home. And if you have any questions beyond that, you can always reach out to Reading Horizons as well. We do have, I'm going to go ahead and go to our main readinghorizons.com website. And if you click on the admin login side, I will say we don't have a parent portal, so you won't have a parent login. So this is where teachers log in. But right up here at the top of the admin login site, there is this yellow banner, and it says, to get the latest Reading Horizons virtual classroom support, click here. And you can click there. That's available for free for everybody. And if you click there, you're going to see some cool things that we have available. So all kinds of virtual classroom support here. And as I scroll down, you're going to see that we do live lessons every day. So if you want your student to benefit from dictation, but you're just not feeling confident about how to facilitate that, well, why didn't you have your student join one of our live lessons? They're each just 30 minutes. It's our instructional coaches who facilitate them. So we've got some Reading Horizons experts there. And if you know what chapter your student is on, you can see what time that lesson is at. And then as you scroll to the very bottom of this page, you'll have an upcoming lesson section. You can find the live lesson for today or tomorrow. We do these Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. You can find that live lesson. You can go ahead and click right on it, and it'll just bring you right into that live lesson screen as soon as that time begins. Now, if you want to see live lessons that have already been done, recordings of them, you can go scroll up just a little bit, and you can see these virtual lessons, the virtual lesson section here, and you can come in and you can see each lesson. So if you see, okay, my student is working on phonetic skill number 4 in the software. That's the lesson my student Sabina was working on. I can see, okay, I see phonetic skills 1 and 2, but not 4 yet. So that just means we're not quite there. We haven't quite added that one yet. We just started doing these a couple weeks ago as school started to close. But I know that this lesson is in chapter 3, so I might just have my student watch a chapter 3 one as a review, or you can start maybe tomorrow, we'll start attending the chapter 3 ones. And even if we're not quite to where your student is, it's great to have them do these reviews as well too, because these will facilitate dictation as well as the other parts of a lesson as well too. So a direct instruction lesson is the ideal complement for a software lesson. So those two things together can really help a student be successful. They can be successful with a software-only approach by itself. It will just be a little slower. That growth is just a little slower. They can be successful with direct instruction only by itself. But again, that that growth can be just a little slower. So when they're together, that's the ideal situation. So you can use these virtual direct instruction lessons as a complement to your Arch Discovery software. Or if your teacher is providing virtual lessons or recommended work for your student to do, that would be the priority, absolutely. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I sure appreciate you joining today. Thank you so much.